scary. Fall Festival is going to be the Saturday before Halloween, and we still need people to help us man the games and things. And so what this will look like is we will set you up with a game. You don't need to bring one, and we'll tell you how to do it. Like there's a Noah's Ark game. The kids throw the Beanie Babies into the ark, and then you give them a piece of candy if they get them in. And there will be a chair there, so you don't have to stand the whole time. You can sit, and it should be a lot of fun. We get a lot of community people that come out year after year, and they get to hear Daniel share the gospel, and so it's just a really great event. And then new to us, this is our second year doing it, is Trunk or Treat. Last year we had about 6 cars and so many people. A lot of the community came over, and so that was fantastic. This year we're hoping to have about 25 cars, and we've made 20 car costumes, as I call them. So it's a kit. So you can look through the photos. I have a stack of photos. I'll be out in the back at the table after this class, and also after the 11 o'clock service. And you can pick a car theme. So if you were to pick the zoo theme, we have the little grate that makes it look like a cage, and we have the stuffed animals, and we have a little tablecloth that you can drape in your car to like black out from the rest of the car, and we have tape and lights and all of that. So you don't have to do anything other than just show up at 6 and grab a car kit, and you can even grab it early if you want to. I know some people, I think Josh is doing our camping theme. Yes, and so he can add stuff to it. You know, it says suggestions on there if you want to add things to it, but it should be a really fun night. And what I love about these events is when I go to the newcomers class, I always ask the people, how did you hear about us? And I tell you more often than not, they tell me I came to one of the events. And so it's just a great way for us to, raise attention about our church and have people come in. So, all right, that's all I've got. Thank you so much. And email Jennifer Howard if you want to do it. Jennifer@matthewroad.org.
No open campfires, though, on the camp. I already see your mind working, and bonfire, and yeah.
We could get a fog machine.
No, there you go. Fake fire. You're a techno guy. You can make fire work without actual fire. Yeah. Imagination for fire. There's just a little bit of lighting. And all right, well, it's good to see you guys. It's been a busy week. I don't know if you've been busy. It's been a busy week for the Sweet household. Kim's recovered well from her surgery she had last week, and she went back to work Thursday a little bit, back to work Friday a little bit, but I think she'll be back to regular schedule starting Monday. And so she's doing well. My surgery's in 12 days from now. Again, minor surgery. I think that will go super easy. I booked my final steps of airfare today from Bangkok to Myanmar, back to Bangkok, but to the other airport, because that's where I'm catching my flight. But to the other airport, flights from Yangon to Don Muan Airport in North Bangkok are so rare that I literally bought 2 tickets. I bought one on Asia Air at 9:45 and one on Myanmar Air at 10:45 because they were both $60. And I went for $120 to make sure I do not miss my flight on NOC Airlines. I'm going to make one of the 2 flights. So $60 of I could pay $30 for flight insurance, or I could pay $60 and literally buy another ticket. So I just went, I'm just buying a second ticket. So if I show up and they're like, that flight's canceled, I'm just going to go roll right back out of there and right over to the next counter and go, put me on the flight I booked on Myanmar Airlines. So, and then I'll catch NOC Airlines, the famous NOC Airlines. NOC means goose, I think, in Thai. And they have a goose on the front of the planes. That's a great airline. I love them. I love the airport. Don Muan Airport's great in Bangkok. It's super cool. And so I like the 2 Bangkok airports. They're fine. Myanmar's airport's actually super nice, too. They just recently redid the whole terminal, and it's pretty nice, too. So none of those things are problems. But, so I got those final tickets. I got to book. The only thing I have left is Joseph's tickets from Bangkok to to Myanmar and then back to Bangkok. But he can go to the same airport back and forth because I'm going on to another place. And so, yeah. But I think all that's worked out. I got a message from from Watto, and he changed what he wanted me to do, because he had told me, teach these 4 days. And then he messaged me, he goes, no, teach these 5 days. I was like, I already bought a plane ticket. So I'm going to figure that out now. And that means that there's 2 flights a day in and out of Mesot, 2 a day, both with NOC Airlines. And I was flying out in the morning. So now I'm going to go back and buy a one-way ticket for the evening. And I'll teach that day and just tell them, drop me at the airport at 2 p.m. But the scary thing to me is that my flight is at 3 a.m. that night back to the U.S. So that flight has to happen. I've checked. You can get a bus from Mesot to Bangkok, and I might make it, because that's a lot of time. I mean, that's over 12 hours. But I don't really want to do that if I can avoid it. Or I'll rent a car and drive it myself or something. But I don't want to do that if I can avoid it, obviously. But at this point, I think to get an extra day of teaching, I'm going to have to take the second flight. So I got to go back. That's one more thing I do. I got to go back and buy a one-way ticket on NOC Airlines on the second flight out. So I'm going to have 2 tickets that I won't use, but I've got them just in case I need them. So I got to go back and buy the second half of that. But anyway, so it's fun. I'm ready to go. I think it will be a really good trip. And where he was asking for a theme, and I sent him a theme. He goes, "That's too long. It won't fit on the title, on the banner we're printing. Shorten it." So I was like, "All right, we'll get it down to 3 words." Yes. Yeah, he's the one who is in Myanmar, in Yangon, Mabi Township, which is just north of Yangon. It's a suburb, 30 minutes north of Yangon. Watto and Caleb have both been here. And Watto I will see. So in Thailand, the Karen refugees are there. And they were supposed to go back into Myanmar, and then the coup happened in 2021. We had actually spent some money buying land in Myanmar for their return. They were going to move the Bible college, 500 students and the buildings, by putting them piecemeal on boats across that river and reassembling them in Myanmar. That's what they were going to do. And there was a piece of land there that had been clear cut. It was about 40 acres, and we bought the land, but we were like, he said, "Man, just the land, that's not good." So we bought about 100 fruit trees that they planted all the way the perimeter around it. And the idea was that they would at least have food source, that kind of thing. So there's a piece of land that we helped them buy that's in Myanmar that is 40 acres and now has 100 fruit trees on it. Our hope is that eventually peace will come back, and they still own the land. They can move back there to build the Bible college. However, in Thailand, someone had given them land for their seminary, a Karen people group seminary. And we gave them money to build the seminary. And the students built this building themselves. $5,000 is what we sent them. And they built a 12,000 square foot building that when the coup happened, they housed a bunch of refugees in. So they've now got them all settled. So I'm going to get to teach at the seminary that we helped build, which is really cool. And so I'm gonna get to teach there. So I'm gonna teach Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and now apparently Wednesday. I'll probably do that morning. I'll probably give them a test they can take because it's graduate students, while I'm going to the airport. And then hopefully I'll fly out of Mesot back to Bangkok, take the bus across town, go to the other airport, get on a plane, fly back to the U.S. That's the plan. We'll see if that all works out, but that's the plan. So yeah, I'm threading the needle a little bit on a couple of the pieces. Going there, I'm not, but coming back, I'm threading a couple of the pieces in there, I'm threading the needle. Now going from Bangkok's main airport into Yangon, I only booked one ticket because there's like 40 flights a day. So I was just like, if I miss a flight, I'll just walk over to the next counter and go, I need a ticket. I missed a flight once from Bangkok to Nagaland. I just totally, my mind just shut down. I just missed it. Like I thought it was the next day. And then Kent O'Shea messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I'm headed to the airport to pick you up." I was like, look at the flight. The problem is I had 17 flights on that trip, and I just got confused. And I had a night at this hotel in Bangkok, and I didn't have it. I should have been on the airplane. I just got confused. And so I literally missed it. So I told him, hey, don't give me, I'm coming tomorrow. Drove over to the airport, and for $300 they changed my flight. It's like, okay. So, because I was flying from Bangkok to Calcutta, and then Calcutta back to Bangkok. So for $300 I just went and they said, oh, no problem. They charged me $300. It was my fault. Yeah. So some of these, the most flights I've ever taken was 19 flights in one trip. That was the worst. That one was like just unbelievable. Just how many different airplanes I got on, and yeah. I tried. I wanted to. Keto Shea has something going on in his situation where he told me, he said, I can't do it in January. Can you come early December? It's just like, there's no way. I mean, like, I love them. I'd love to go, but there's no way I can go early December to Nagaland and then go to Myanmar and Thailand the first week of January. That's impossible. That's just not going to work. I can't stay there for 5-6 weeks and do what? Well, I don't coach during that time period, so I don't care about that. Like the baseball team, that we shut down for December, so the baseball team's not doing anything. What would I do, you know? Like, hey, Kim, I'll see you in 6 weeks while I sit around Bangkok? I don't know. That doesn't seem like a good idea. But I tried to get them to add it, and he's like, no, because their daughter's coming here to school in January. And apparently they have a lot going on with that, and he said they'd prefer not do that. So maybe next year that will work out, but for this year it's just not going to work out. I really wanted to go back. Yeah. The one thing about Kim is that if she's not working, she doesn't get paid. And 6 weeks in Bangkok would be the most expensive 6 weeks in human history. And it would have nothing to do with hotel costs. Which hotel in Bangkok is $20 a night for a really good hotel. I know, because it's the hotel I stay in every time we go there. I got it for $26 a night. And it's got a swimming pool and a workout area that's really nice. And the swimming pool overlooks the runway for the international airport. And they call it, the deck is called the Flight View. And you can literally watch international air flights take off and land all day long. You can just sit up there. They have a cafe up there, or I don't think you can get coffee or something like that. And you can just sit up there, and there's a bar. I think it's got a bar too and stuff. I've never done this because that doesn't really intrigue me. But you can sit up there and watch the planes come in and leave all day long. And so it sits right there on the airport. But the rooms are super nice, and there's a restaurant. You walk out the door and 50 paces, and the restaurant's there, and for $2 you can get chicken fried rice. That is super good. So in terms of vacation, other than the flight cost, if you want to go spend a couple of weeks in Bangkok, it is a cheap place to hang out. It's like going to LA in terms of like the city and stuff. But yeah. Walk in love. It was seated with Christ, seated with Christ, walking in love, or something like that. And he's like, too long. It's like, okay, walking in love, because it's the opening of Ephesians 4, right? So, anyway, yeah. So Joseph and I are going to break this up, and he came to talk to me about something this week, and as he's talking to me about it, I went, hey, this is it. This is how we break this up. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, you came to ask me about this Ephesians 4 and 5 outline because you're teaching it in students tonight. I was like, work through this. Why don't you just do that? And we'll just, there's Ephesians 4, 1 through Ephesians 5, well, all the way through 6, 4 is like this real kind of ethical type things. And I said, why don't you just teach that interspersed throughout? I'll do the theology of Ephesians 1 through 3, and I'll finish with Ephesians 6 and the armor of God, and you just teach the sessions in between. And the 2 afternoon sessions every day do that. And so that's how we're going to break it up. And so it's not, perfect line by line through the book, but good enough, I think. And so I'll, in the mornings and at night, teach Ephesians 1 through 3, which is the kind of very deep, meaty theological section of it. And he'll have the real practical, ethical side of it. Walk in love, don't steal, don't get angry, all those kinds of things. And so that's how we're going to balance this. So we'll do 2 sessions in the afternoon every day. Joseph will teach kind of these ethical aspects of Ephesians. And then in the morning, I'll do a couple sessions, and at night, I'll do 1. And so I really wanted Joseph to go with me because of what we're doing in May with reference to, in June, in July, with reference to the church as a whole. And Joseph's going to lead part of that. He's going to write all the Sunday school lessons for those 9 weeks. And so he's doing that, and we're using this as the means by which we do that. And so I really wanted him to go with me on that. And the other thing, too, is I really wanted Joseph to go because if 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm not the pastor of Matthew Road anymore or something happens, I would really like the church to retain its relationship with Caleb. So if 10 years from now I'm retired, but Joseph is still on staff, maybe who knows, maybe he's the pastor's staff, I don't know, whatever, but he's still here, then I'd like to introduce, now Richard knows Caleb as well and has been there a couple times and taught, and so we already have that connection, but I wanted Joseph also to know him. I'm trying to introduce a few people to him. Kim's been there. Angela and Ed Geisendorf have been there. So I want to have a relationship with them, just like with the Mexican pastors. We have several people that have been to Mexico besides Reuben, and we've built good relationships with them. So having those kinds of ongoing relationships is important. So, yeah, Paul. They're so good at doing it now that we're almost like that's a good question. Okay, so the Sudan, you guys, some of you might not even know, we were heavily involved in the Sudan for a while. And Kim went 4 times into the Sudan. I went once. We had other people at church went once. And so, first of all, we still have an ongoing relationship with the orphanage. We still have some people that support the orphanage. We have a Sunday school class that has a couple kids they sponsor and that kind of thing. What happened was that there was a lot of medical staff turnover. So they're still doing incredible stuff there. They still have a great clinic there. They still do all kinds of medical help there. Kim wound up where she felt like for her skill set and focus that the effort in Myanmar was a better, just had more, like Caleb consults her, he'll ask her questions about medical things. She now knows all the kids, stuff like that. We just had a better relationship there, and she felt like she could be more productive there. Other docs are still going, I think, to the Sudan, but the reality is all is shut down with COVID anyway. So going into COVID, Kim had found the Karen refugees and the children's home in Myanmar to be the best use of her focus. And so we kind of turned our attention there. And then the other place, Mexico. We've kept the Mexico stuff going. She did clinics the last couple of years. We were shut down because of COVID. But every time we've gone down there in the summer, we've done clinics. So for her, she's just making decisions about what she thinks is most effective and efficient for her. And so I suspect, I don't want to speak for her, but I think just the way she thinks about it, I think if she heads back overseas for an extensive trip, she's also now the president of this Samaritan's Medical Outreach Ministries. So that's another thing. She's real involved in India now too. So that's the other thing. So because of that, she's just picking and choosing where she feels like the biggest need is. And South Sudan now has pretty good groups of medical teams handling that. And so she's kind of shifted her focus to some other places. It's a tough thing with all these, like deciding where to spend your time and how much money and is that a good use of money? Like all the time we're asking that question. Is this a good use? This is $5,000. Is that a good $5,000 to spend? That kind of thing. And we're always asking these questions. Yes? He is. Latirim is his Latirim, L-A-T-H-I-R-M something. Latirim. He's friends of mine, so just go to mine. Well, I don't know if mine's searchable. I locked mine down pretty tight. H-R-E-M. Yeah, Latrim. What's that? I assume people are monitoring it, yeah. Yeah. Well, Morocco's scarier than Myanmar and this kind of stuff, but yeah. I mean, the church functions in Myanmar in open. I mean, the church that Adoniram Judson started is still there, still meeting. So churches meet there. The coup didn't change that at all. The military change of government. There were already churches meeting there, and there's still churches meeting there. Some churches have faced some persecution, and the Karen have faced persecution, especially since the change. But then around Yangon, it seems like everything's been kind of unchanged. So on that front, other things have changed, but on that front, they've been like, no, we're still open for business. Nothing's changed. That's what the new leadership keeps trying to communicate. So in remote areas, I think it's not been the case. I think they've faced more challenges. But in Yangon, like the leadership's like, yeah, y'all keep meeting. Nothing's changed. You have your orphanage? Yeah, cool. No problem. That's good. Good, it's good. We like charity. So churches are fine, just can't meet in your home. If you're going to meet, build a building. Meet in public where everybody can see it. That's what they told them. You can't meet in a home, but they'll tell them, build a building, you can meet all you want. You just have to do it in public. If you're doing it in people's homes, we want to know why you're doing it. But you meet in that building right there on the corner, and we can all see it, then it's not a problem. Which is kind of interesting take on it. So, yeah. Local village chiefs have a huge influence in Myanmar, too. So if your local village chief is a good guy, then everyone benefits. Christian, Buddhist, Chen, Burmese, everyone benefits. And the neighborhood they're in, the guy is awesome. He's a super good dude. I've met him a few times, try to give him a gift every time we go, and just tell him thank you for letting us be there. And he seems like a really good dude. And they have lots of say over the community. It's interesting. So that's plays into this some too. But yeah. Anyway, it's exciting stuff, I guess. I don't know why I picked this morning to book the flight. I think it was on my mind last night. It's like, you know what? I haven't booked those last couple of flights. So I was like, I better do that while I'm thinking about it. So I jumped on there real quickly. It only took like 5 minutes to do the whole thing, but to buy 3 different plane tickets. It didn't take long. But yeah. Yeah, the worst, like I said, there can be 16, 17 flights on some of these because you have a couple flights getting there. Then you have a flight into Myanmar. You have a flight back out of Myanmar. You have the flight to Mae Sot, the flight back to Bangkok. Bangkok, a couple of stops on the way home. But if you throw in Nagaland on top of that, you have a flight from Bangkok to Calcutta, Calcutta to Kohima. Dimapur, Nagaland. Then Dimapur back to Calcutta, Calcutta back to Bangkok. And then if you add in there, sometimes I've gone Bangkok to Japan to LA to Dallas, both coming and going. That puts another couple of flights on there, both coming and going. So yeah, it's ridiculous how many times you get in an airplane. But the last time I went was the most flights I'd ever taken, I think, because we also went somewhere inside Myanmar. So we flew up to Techulek. And so, yeah, that was exciting. Techulek, Myanmar, is one of the coolest and strangest places in the world because it's on the border of Thailand, Myanmar, and China. The buildings have signs in all 3 languages. And it's in Myanmar, technically, but they only use Thai baht for currency. I got a bunch of money at the airport in Yangon so that I would have cash to spend in kyat. And got there, and the hotel goes, we don't take that. He goes, okay, I'll take it. I can take it and get it exchanged at the bank. So he took it, but he basically, they take only Thai baht there. I was really confused then. Like, where am I? You know, this is so confusing. So it's a really nice little town, though. It's really pretty, and yeah. But I will not get to go to Techelec, but John, who's the pastor in Techelec, will be at the conference. And so I'll get to see him. I usually give him something small. I left him a projector one time. I took a used projector from here that was like worth $100 or something. It was a smaller one. I just threw it in my suitcase, and I had it just in case we had a fail at Nagaland or whatever, and I went there last, so I was done with it. I just went, I don't want to carry this anymore. I was afraid to get broken anyway. Like, the more I put it in that suitcase, the more was the chance of getting broken. I went, John, you think you could use this? And he started tearing up. He's like, man, I've so wanted to be able to the songs on the screens like Caleb's been doing for his church. I was like, well, take it. I don't want to take it back to the U.S. with me. It's going to get broken the more I keep banging it around in this suitcase. But he emailed me this week, said his computer went out that they were using for projecting words. And I've got a laptop in my office. I've been sitting there for 3 years not doing anything. It's just collecting dust. It's a small one, 14-inch. I'm just going to throw it in. If it survives the trip, he can use it and have it. If it doesn't, then I go, sorry, my bad, John. So you couldn't get $50 for this laptop if you tried to sell it. And so I'll use it while I'm kind of traveling maybe, I guess. And then I'll just leave it there. Like, you want it? If you don't, throw it away. It's not worth anything. And so I'll just leave it with John. I have to do it real discreetly, you know. But anyway. All right, well, yeah, so we're in the book of Revelation. And this text, just practically speaking, these things are so impractical. I mean, none of this stuff could ever happen in real life. I mean, seriously, like Armageddon, like what kind of, there's no way something like that could ever take place. Like, there could be all the nations of the world all focused on this one little strip of land. It could never happen. Oh, okay, well, we'll read about it anyway, just hypothetically. But there's no way you have mass armies out of the east now gathering, facing mass armies out of the west and Europe. I mean, that could never happen. Threats of global annihilation in the midst of it. But theoretically, we can read about it here, and maybe some generation will see some of these things. I don't know. All right, so Revelation, actually, let me do this. We'll finish with the last couple things. So the 7 angels who had the 7 plagues have come out of the temple, and the 4 living creatures gave the 7 angels the 7 golden bowls full of the wrath of God who lives forever and ever. Verse 8, and the temple was filling with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. No one was able to enter the temple until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were finished. So, like, this is happening. You can't stop the motion, you know? Like, you can't stop. This is now unfolding, and you can't stop it. Which is great, because the world right now, everyone is trying to control the situation. Everyone. Every government in the world is trying to control, right? If we put our aircraft carrier here, we'll intimidate. And they're like, no, we'll put our aircraft carrier here. And this person's like, well, we'll threaten nuclear weapons. And the U.S. says, well, we'll knock it out of the sky by putting this thing here. And then the Russians, who are loving all this, by the way, because everyone's now distracted from the fact that they're committing atrocities in Ukraine, they're thrilled by this because now everybody's distracted about how bad they are. And they're lecturing Israel on, now y'all be fair about this war. Like, dude, you're blowing up apartments in the Ukraine. Now suddenly you're going to take the moral high ground. What a loser he is. And so, yeah, but anyway, but all of these individuals are trying to control the situation, right? It's like, if we do this, then we'll get control of that. If we do this, then everyone will respond to us this way. And so all of this stuff's unfolding. And here's the thing about this. Now, I'm not telling you that what's happening in the middle of this is revelation. I'm just saying, if it's not, because it very well could be just coincidental, that it's very eerily similar, and that this could be something 100 years from now before these events unfold, or 1,000 years from now. I don't know. I don't know. I have no prophetic insight. God's not giving me prophecy. I don't think that happens. I think we have the word of God. So I don't think he's like giving me special knowledge or anything like that. Always be nervous about that person. Like, I figured all this out. Just come to me and I'll instruct you. Like, the people who have said that throughout history have always proven to be complete morons. So don't do that. I don't know. All I'm saying is that this is eerily similar to the kind of language here. It may have nothing to do with it. But there's these fundamental ideas, though, here, which is that the whole world's raging, thinking they're in charge. Like they're trying, I'm going to force this action. We'll force this action. These people are bad. We're good. No, you're bad. We're good. Like there's all of this jockeying for who's more right, who's got more power, who's got more control, all of this. And what you see here is that God in his presence just says, the presence into the temple is shut off until everything I've ordained happens exactly the way I said it would happen. And so you get the sovereignty of God here. The God is completely sovereign over all this, and the world will rage as if the world thinks it's in charge. So it's a great reminder. It's a great reminder for us. So yeah, like I'm going to go to Myanmar, but I have to look at that and go, however the Lord wills. Like, I don't have control over this. I bought plane tickets. That's it. That's all I mean, and I'm going to go to the airport, I guess, and get on a plane. But like, God can do whatever he wants, when he wants, how he wants. So I don't have any control over this. God's sovereign. He's the one in charge, the one in control. So the same thing's going on here. It's just a reminder that this is entirely at the sovereign hand of God. He's in charge. All right, now here's what the in charge looks like. We have the 7 bowls of the wrath of God. Verse 1, then I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 angels, go. So here it is. Now the heavenly plan, the heavenly gathering, the heavenly setup for all this. We had the song of the saints, remember last week? They're playing harps, singing the song of Moses. The sovereignty of God's about to break. The wrath of God's about to break. And now God says to the 7 angels, are probably through the 4 creatures, remember? One of them probably said, go at the bequest of God and pour out on earth the 7 bowls of the wrath of God. That's why I think it's one of the living creatures, because otherwise it would say, my wrath. So, the wrath of God. So, here it comes. And this, unlike the seals and the trumpets, these things are all 7 of them, one chapter, just one right after another. Almost one per verse, 1 or 2 verses per bowl. And that's it. So the first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and a harmful, painful sore affected the people who had a mark of the beast and who worshiped his image. Okay, so we have pestilence. This is very similar to the book of Exodus and the Exodus accounts. So those who have followed after the beast are now, and who worshiped his image, are now affected. Now, so by the way this works in dispensationalist circles or premillennial circles is that the first 3.5 years of the time of tribulation comes from the 7 trumpets. And all of these lead up to the pronouncement of divine authority of the beast, the worldwide allegiance to him, all this kind of thing. Everything's going great, by the way. Lots of trouble, but governmentally it looks great because you have the world is rallied around this very strong, prominent leader who in the midst of all this chaos is going to bring order. And the whole world's going to give themselves to this leader because there's so much chaos. The whole world's just like, you got to fix this. Now, nothing like that could ever happen in our lifetime, like out of control inflation with serious war taking place and a worldwide pandemic to where someone needs to step in and order things. That could never happen in our life. But anyway, so what will happen is that the world struggles with all this. What sounds like during the trumpets is that the world basically gives themselves to this strong, prominent leader, and all the world's nations go, yeah, you know what? We need help here. Let's just submit ourselves to this leader. And the leader then says, well, if you're in, I need a mark of loyalty. If you're in, we need a mark of loyalty. And you willingly take this mark. And that shows you're in. You're in the club that says, yep, our loyalty is to this Antichrist. Much the way baptism functions for the Christian who says, my loyalty is to Jesus, my identity is in him. This mark is kind of the baptism of the religion of the Antichrist. You take this mark as your public identity to say, I'm identifying myself, I'm in the Antichrist. I'm in the Antichrist the way a Christian is in Christ. And what will happen now is that as the 3.5 years tribulation, the beast sets himself up, according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, without going there, the Antichrist will set himself up as the object of worship, and then now God's going to pour his wrath out on all that rebellion the second 3.5 years. So 7 years, the first 3.5, lots of trouble happening, but in terms of governmental things, it looks good because the whole world's going to be like, we got us a leader. We're going to fix this. We can trust this guy. In fact, he says, well, if you trust me, he gets his little minion, Antichrist minion, to run around going, if you trust him, you need the mark. You need to take on the symbol that shows you're in the Antichrist. And the whole world goes, yeah, we're in. And Christians are going, no, this is bad. You are dumb. This is a bad idea. He's not good. I know it looks good. I know you're struggling. I know you've got trials and tribulations. I know food is short. I know infections are running rampant. I know all those things are true, but you guys are wrong. This guy is not good. This guy is not good. Everything the language being used here is not good. And Christians will say that. Jews will say that, and great persecution will break out in both cases. Now, both the people of God and the church will face, the children of God and the people of God will face great persecution. And this will culminate with the Antichrist taking the seat of great authority, and the whole world will submit to this person. And then at that moment, the true sovereign opens the doors to the true reign in palace, the temple, heavenly temple, and says, now let me respond in sovereignty over all these people who think they're in charge. And that's what's happening here. Now, if you're post-mill, you say, this all happened in 70 AD or whatever. I'm like, maybe, but man, this language is so eerily similar to more modern type language to me. And so to me, it feels like it's still yet future. Yeah, Paul. What's that now? Like if they're doing post-millennial type stuff, where does this stuff come?
Somebody who says this is all 70 AD, where did they get the event of the painful sores on Jerusalem?
I've heard all kinds of stuff on this. Some of this is more, there was infections broke out in the city of Jerusalem. They had healthcare issues and stuff like that. The whole thing focuses around the city of Jerusalem. And the problem is there's very little information about specific day-to-day stuff in Jerusalem. There's big picture stuff we get from Josephus and a couple other sources, but you don't get the kind of details. And so when I say things like, well, what about this prediction? People will say, well, we don't know. That may have happened. We just don't have the information on it. And I go, it's an argument from silence, and it makes it hard to refute because you go, okay, that could be. Like, you're right. I mean, I can't say that there was a mass revival among Jews in the city of Jerusalem in 70 AD right as the city's falling, because that's the argument. And I go, well, what about this statement by Paul that right as this is taking place, that there will be a revival of the Jews right at, Romans chapter 11. Where did that happen? And they go, no, in Jerusalem during this time. I go, where's the evidence of that? They go, well, there's no historical record of this, but that's when it happened. And so what it leaves is the person arguing for some of these events from silence, saying, well, this was this event. The other thing is that it leaves the last 3.5 years of tribulation all occurring at Masada with a few hundred people holed up at this remote location just outside Bethlehem. And it's like, so the bowls are being poured out on a few hundred zealots in Masada? I'm like, yeah, that's the rest of the 7 years. I go, man, this does not sound like events that are affecting a few hundred zealots at Masada. I guess it could be, but it just feels weightier than that. It feels more global than that. So, because this says, poured out his bowl on the earth, so a few hundred people get sores. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. The second angel poured out his bowl into the sea, and it became blood like that of a dead man, and every living thing in the sea died. That sounds terrible. Then the third angel poured out his bowl into the rivers and spring waters, and they became blood. All right, so we're 3 bowls into it, 3 verses of bowls and like horrible things. And all of these are the response of God toward the end of this judgment to the fact that all these people took the mark of the beast and were passionately pursuing the immorality of that loyalty. So God's like just pouring out wrath on this huge rebellion. And then we hear this in verses 5 through 7. It says, "And I heard an angel of the waters saying, 'Righteous are you, the one who is and who was, O Holy One, because you judge these things, for they poured out the blood of the saints and prophets, and you have given them blood to drink. They,'" NASB 2020, "they deserve it." Like, that's pretty earthy. It's from NASB 2020. I think 1995 uses a little different phrasing on this. But "they deserve it." That's pretty earthy. Yeah. "And I heard the altar saying, 'Yes, Lord God, the Almighty, true and righteous are your judgments.'" So it's like, well, why the blood in the ocean and why the blood in the water? It's the same as the Egyptian plagues. Why the water turned to blood? Answer, because they had tossed the Jewish babies into the Nile River. The shedding of innocent blood of the Jewish babies resulted in the first plague, is just to say, innocent blood was shed here and you pay the price for it. So that's what's going on here, which means that in this process of the first 3.5 years, this is why I'm not a huge pre-tribulational rapture person, is that it sounds like to me, if someone says, no, these are all just people who converted during the first 3.5 years. I guess, I mean, like, again, it's fairly speculative. To me, it looks like the believers are still here.
Isn't it that after the first 3.5 years is when he takes the mask off and really goes to town on persecution, but the first 3.5 is kind of like a fake honeymoon?
There's persecution. No, remember, because during the first 3.5 years, anyone refusing to take the mark faced massive persecution. So now we have this established kingdom, people bearing the mark, people who didn't went to prison, got cut off from food. Now God says, now I'm going to respond to that. And the reason I separated by the 3.5 and 3.5 is the book of Daniel. Book of Daniel separates it into 2 3.5 year periods. And to me, that if those are parallel, and I don't know, I could be wrong about this, and it could be all happened in 70 AD, and Masada was a real deal, and the fall of Jerusalem was a real deal. That's possible. It could also be this is all just amillennialism, which is like, this is all imagery and symbolism, and we're being too technical with like historic, like lining up with actual historical events. This is more broad picture imagery of trouble in the world and things like that. It's all symbolic and not literal. And, well, I mean, everyone has some symbolism to it. No one takes this all literal because there's things in here that are clearly symbols. I mean, like, so I think it's an issue of how much of it is symbolic, how much of it is symbolism that's literal. That's always the issue on the book of Revelation. So no one says, well, they're 100% literalist on Revelation. There are people who say they're almost entirely symbolic on the book, but yeah. I do find it kind of weird that John 14, I'd planned on this verse weeks ago that we say, "My peace I give you," as the world is melting down. And then we come in here today and it's like Revelation 16. I was prepared for this going, you gotta be kidding. This is the Battle of Armageddon is in here. And I'm like, man, oh man, what in the world is going on? You talk about strange timing. Just as a preacher going, so I was thinking about what should I prepare to preach next? And I was thinking maybe the one where Solomon gets super rich. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Maybe preach that one, and then maybe I'll plan on it, and then all you guys will win the lottery. You go, man, I love this First King stuff. Teach more of that, right? Well, at first it went well, but then everyone would have to marry 1,000 people, and this would get really complicated. But yeah, it didn't start badly for him though. The first 7 years is pretty good, yeah. The other thing, he spent 14 years building his palace, and the last thing you want to be doing for 14 years is be in building a new house project. That sounds miserable to me. Like dealing with contractors all the time, this sounds like a living hell itself. Like 14 years of contractors, like I don't want to do that. Let's get this thing built. Let's do a 6-month build, not a 14-year build. Like, that sounds terrible. Even the contractors are like, you want to do this over 14 years? We're out. I'm sorry. My electrician's got to be at another spot in 6 weeks. We're not doing this project. So I don't know. But anyway, so this is a statement about why the water was turned to blood. We get an explicit statement. Here's why that particular plague happened. And it is God's righteous judgments over that happened. The next plague, the fourth angel poured out his bowl upon the sun, and it was given power to scorch people with fire. And the people were scorched with fierce heat, and they blasphemed the name of God who has the power over these plagues, and they did not repent so as to give him glory. So apparently talk about global warming. I mean, like it seems like pretty substantial global environmental change here. So much so there's no relief from the sun. So in other words, the book of Revelation in the last 3.5 years is like living in Texas or something like that. Yeah, living in Texas in August. Just think about, what we had in August. If I said, okay, those will be cool days for us in this time, those would be like a cool day, and everything would be much, much worse than that. Yeah. I was in the Sudan I went in the summer, which was not summer for them, but in April in the Sudan, they have temperatures that range in the 120 to 130 highs. And I asked him, what do y'all do on a day that's that hot? He goes, nothing. We sit in the shade and pray for the sun to go down. And I'm like, well, what if the whole world were like that? 120 degree days, 130 degree days. At night, a cool temperature's 90. Yeah. Texas in August all the time and worse. Man, sounds brutal. But those with solar power will be really happy. They'll be really happy. Their AC will work. All right, let's see. So the fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and his kingdom became darkened. And they gnawed their tongues because of the pain, and they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pain and their sores, and they did not repent of their deeds. So the whole kingdom of the beast, all the people who pledged loyalty, is just swept into pain and suffering. Remember during the plagues of Egypt, the only group that was exempted from all the plagues, not all of them, but most of them, was the Jewish people. Remember that? It's like gnats everywhere, except for in Goshen. Frogs everywhere, except for in the Jewish homes, right? And I wonder about this, because this is real specific about the pain and suffering is only on those who are in the kingdom of the beast. Again, this all could have occurred in 70 AD. This could all be symbolic, or this is something yet future. Those are our three options. And I lean towards it's something yet future because it does sound very global and things like that. But I think there's some very good arguments from those who are preterists, who think it all happened in 70 AD. I've heard from amillennialists who I think make some pretty persuasive, post-mill and all-mill people who make some pretty persuasive arguments, but it does feel more future to me. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river, the Euphrates. So water was dried up, so the way would be prepared for the kings from the east. So here we have armies coming out of the east who are, for some reason, very interested in the events and goings-on in Jerusalem. You can't make this stuff up. I didn't know until this morning where I read on one of the head articles is that China had sent 3 or 4 vessels into the area near Egypt. So the U.S. has them in the Mediterranean, and China's now got them in the Gulf of Aqaba, or whatever that is. Anyway, that area in there, and the Suez area, that kind of thing. So they brought them in there, right? It's like, that is pretty amazing. So it's dried up, and then that leads to, I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet 3 unclean spirits like frogs, for they are spirits of demons performing signs, which go out to the kings of the entire world to gather them together for the war of the great day of God the Almighty. So here comes Armageddon, and that's what we'll do next week. I know you're like, no, you got to finish. Sorry, you have to come back next week. But that's what you're supposed to do. You know, it's like the TV shows who go, you have a cliffhanger right at the end. You're like, darn it, I got to watch next Thursday now, or whatever it is. So, I'm not a big rapture before the tribulation fan. So if you're not here next week, something terrible's happened. Just saying. All right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Those kinds of specifics I get nervous about because I go, I don't know. That's the other thing about using Old Testament text on some of these things is difficult because some of them are talking about events during Isaiah's day, and I'd have to go look. People will ask me about something like Isaiah 26 with reference to end times. I have to go back and read Isaiah 26 and try to figure out what Isaiah is talking about. And sometimes people have done that, and I go back and read, and it's like, this is Alexander the Great's attack on the cities in the area. This has nothing to do with modern times. So I just have to go look at the context. So I wish I had Isaiah perfectly memorized so that I could just go back, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. There is. I did swim on one night this week, and I was going to swim longer, but I got in a 10, 15-minute conversation with Mohammed from Syria. Super nice dude. He's a jeweler, owns a couple jewelry stores. He told me, he goes, yeah, I'm really a Texan now. That's what he told me. He goes, I'm not really a Syrian. He goes, culturally, I'm more Texan than anything. That's what he told me. I was like, we had a great conversation. So I'm looking for him. He's there all the time. I'm going to have some more conversation with him. I told him I'm a pastor of a church. He goes, oh, that's cool. You like teaching the Bible then? I go, I do like teaching the Bible. You know, and we talked about that for a minute. So I'm hoping to meet up with Mohammed from Syria again in the next few weeks just to have conversations. He was super nice dude and liked him. I liked him. Also, he goes, I just want to take care of my employees. I want to make a little money, but I want to make sure my employees are taken care of. That's what he told me. I was like, I like Muhammad. I think he's a good guy. He seemed like a nice guy. And his kids were running around, having a good time and stuff. So my hope is to circle back with them, have some more conversation. It did cut into my swimming. I lost about 250 meters worth of swim. But it was worth it to have a good conversation, meaningful conversation with the guy. But he's from Syria, so I'm hoping to talk to him again. Yeah. At the Lifetime Fitness, swimming in the pool. Yeah, I just struck up a conversation with him. And next thing I know, he was wide open, super open. We had a very open conversation, briefly about the Bible and tensions in the area where he's from and stuff like that. But that's when he told me, he goes, really, when my dad died a decade ago, that was the last time I thought about, that being my home. He goes, Texas is my home now. My whole family lives here, and I'm more Texan. He goes, I don't even I've gone out to California where my brother lives. He goes, I don't feel at home out there at all. He says, I prefer to be here. My brother prefers California, but I prefer Texas. That's what he told me. I was like, dude, I'm right there with you. Yeah, me and you both. All right, let's pray. God, you're good and kind. Thank you for your word. Be glorified in your people. Be glorified in your church.